If you follow the channel for any length of time, you know that I'm known as a revered pollster. You know, there is Quinnipiac, there is Gallup, and there is my community tab. And the thing is, you know, we keep it real around here too, so my fan base is not necessarily like shills of these games where they just believe and support everything. I really started gaining a lot of fans and followers during the Arkham Knight DLC when I was talking about how terrible the Nightwing DLC was, right? So as a result of that, I mean, my audience, you know, we have good discussions and it's a great audience, but it's not one that is overly, I don't know, fanboys, I guess. Like, we are fanboys, but not to the extent that it's like shilling. I don't know. Anyways, what was this video about again? Oh yeah, the poll. So the poll question was, do you want the Joker to be in Gotham Knights releasing in 2021? And 55% of the 4,200 respondents said yes, and 45% said no. So I mean, it's a very tiny margin, and we're going to get into some of the comments and some of the fan feedback about this question, but I'm going to first give you my thoughts before delving into theirs. Okay, well, actually, here first is one of the best comments, and it's from Shakalaka Amen. Anyway, and he says, dude, what's wrong with people? How do you not want to see Joker in a game with Red Hood and Batgirl as playable characters? In a universe where it's confirmed that Batgirl was shot by the Joker and Red Hood was killed and scarred, how does Red Hood grow without confronting the Joker? What he's speaking to here is the fact that both Barbara Gordon and, you know, Jason Todd have really important relationships with the Joker in the fact of how their character arcs were shaped by him. Even though it is somewhat logical to be fatigued by the character, given how many times he's been in the Arkham games and other places, you also have to recognize that there's a lot of potential here, because one thing that I've said is the Joker is always placed in context of Batman because they are foils to one another, and as a result of that, they're kind of inseparable in the writing. You know, you never really get to see just Batgirl and the Joker, just Nightwing and the Joker, or any other characters and just the Joker. And as a result of that, I think that we're missing a side of the character that we never get to see, because Batman just drives him really insane to a whole nother level, and we see that side of him, and I think it'd be interesting to see other angles of him when he's interacting with Batgirl. Because the other thing about it is that the Joker doesn't really have a strong hatred for Batman in particular. In fact, he has something of an affinity for him, a weird attraction that can't really be described, but he has very complicated feelings towards Batman. And in the case of Jason Todd, he actually really doesn't like the kid, and he never had. In several years dealing with him, he had just never really liked him, and he always rubbed him the wrong way and pissed him off. And I mean, he killed him. He beat the shit out of him with a bar. I couldn't think of the word for a second, but yeah, a crowbar, obviously. And in the case of Batgirl, it's the exact opposite. Batgirl despises the Joker because he literally paralyzed her. Came to her porch, you know, she was in pajamas. It was very late at night, and she was expecting a guest to come over, and she opens the door. It's the Joker. She shoots her in the spine, paralyzes her permanently, and now she has trained herself to recovery. Now, I'm not going to lie. I mean, the explanation that's provided in the bio purely and hopefully is insufficient and only slightly encapsulates the situation going on here, because what it says in the bio is she trains herself to recover from a permanent spinal cord injury, unless she wasn't paralyzed by the Joker, which would be unfortunate. I mean, not that I want her to get paralyzed by the Joker, but I just think it's very important to her character arc, even in the weapon that she uses in the game. Because one thing I pointed out is, why does she have that little stun stick, similar to what Nightwing uses in combat? And the reason why is because she was Oracle before, and when she was Oracle, she is photographed in the comics and repeatedly in many other stories is shown to use those sort of nightsticks or whatever batons in combat as a way to compensate for the fact that she cannot use her legs and is paralyzed. But the hatred that she has for the Joker is really, really powerful. And the thing is that it's a constant balance of revenge and seeking revenge and justice, because revenge and justice are antithetical to one another. And I think that revenge would entail going to the Joker and killing him, but justice is, you know, arresting him, putting him through the legal system, and, you know, what have you, and basically not executing him, which is obviously what she wants to do. I mean, literally, he changed her life forever, at least she thought at the time, and then in this universe she's able to recover from that. But I think that it would be a huge missed opportunity to explore their relationship after that event and after she recovers. And even though she is not paralyzed anymore, can she really forgive the Joker for the years that he took away from her? And hopefully they're exploring these themes in the game. Razor Ryan says there's a bit of Joker fatigue out there, but it could be interesting to see how he'd react to Batman's death, quote unquote. And Razor Ryan, I think that you make a great point here. In the case of the Joker, obviously in the Batman Arkham games, there was, the death of the Joker in Batman Arkham City 2011, and Batman died, again, quote unquote. I love he had like 10,000 quotation marks there, in the Batman Arkham Knight game, and obviously he's not actually dead. And in the case of the Joker, he really did die, though, in that game. And to put even further emphasis on it in Arkham Knight, they lit the character on fire in the first scene of the game to really show you, yes, this character is 1,000% dead, which I thought was a fantastic opening. But nonetheless, here's the thing. As you pointed out, we never really get to see the Joker without Batman. And what if Batman is dead? How does the Joker act and behave in this universe? And what is he up to? How has he escaped from Arkham for the 10 millionth time? And will we get to learn more about Batman and the Joker's relationship before the events of the game? Knowing the fact that Batman is dead in this game, are we going to get to learn more about how Batman used to be in this universe in the 20 years prior to his, quote, death, end quote? Okay, now here's another comment I got a lot, and I'm not going to lie, this makes no sense to me. I don't agree with anybody on this. People are saying they want him as a side villain, and this to me is completely nonsensical. I cannot invent this. Possibly could not work. I've said this before, but the Joker is the most iconic supervillain ever created, probably in human history. He is incredibly influential, incredibly iconic. Everyone in the world knows who the Joker is. Doesn't matter what language you're speaking, where you're going in the world. He is highly recognizable, and he is incredibly popular. And that is consistently across the animated version of the character with Mark Hamill. And then obviously in the live action movies, many actors have portrayed him incredibly well. And in the comic books, he's really important right now with the 3 Joker story. DC continually exploits that character's name brand. In the case of the Batman Arkham games, that is a game series that is fundamentally about the relationship between Batman and the Joker, with both characters playing a main spotlight role in all 4 games, including Arkham Origins. So when you really put all of these things in context, Injustice also heavily relies upon the Joker. So pretty much every successful mainstream outlet of DC Comics, which is probably 50% of their profit, maybe even 60%, comes from Batman alone, and then the remaining 40 to 50% comes from, all their other characters combined, Superman, Wonder Woman, etc. So Batman is their main cash cow in the same way. It's roughly the same breakdown over at Marvel with Spider-Man. And putting all of that in context, the Joker plays a very substantial role in driving a lot of the fan fervor and revenue for DC Comics and that character overall. And with that being said, he's just such an overpowering figure. He's the type of character who is like strangely alpha in the purest sense of the word, not in like the alpha male strategies, red pill YouTube guides, in the sense of literally like he is such a domineering figure where he has a weird power dynamic. I mean, he's a sociopath after all, so this is not unusual, where he wants to be the top dog and couldn't possibly be second place to another villain, at least not for long. Look at Arkham City, for instance. There's no way that Hugo Strange would come to the Joker and say, oh, we're going to get together and do this plan, and or in the case of Arkham Knight, and then in Arkham City, he's not going to team up with anybody. With Hugo Strange, Rachel Golik, anyone that wants to team up with him, he's pretty much not going to do it, at least not for long, if he does it in the interim. So knowing that it's just how the character is, how could he possibly be a side villain? And he's raising so much havoc everywhere he goes, and every turn he takes, fire just explodes behind him. And as a result of how disastrous the character is, and I don't see him being a secondary character again, at least not for any substantial period of time. Maybe in the Arkham Origins sense where it's a character plot twist, but can you just introduce the Joker as a side mission? No, the character is far too chaotic, bombastic to possibly take the backseat to any other character. He just doesn't really move quietly in anything that he does, and it would just not feel authentic to be playing a side mission with the most iconic villain ever created, and then to like go switch over to Mr. Freeze. And no disrespect to Mr. Freeze, it's just the iconography of those two characters doesn't even compare. And I do think it would be a little bizarre to see the Joker as a side villain. Now, what are we talking here? Are we talking about an Easter egg? Now, Easter eggs, obviously. I mean, if you have a big Easter egg teasing into Gotham Knights 2 that the Joker is going to be the main villain, that's something I actually think they should go that route. You know, you don't need to include the Joker in all 3 games in this potential trilogy if they go down that route. And I think it'd be superfluous to have the Joker in every game, but you could do sort of the Batman movie style type of thing where the Court of Owls is the main villain for the first game, then the Joker for the second game, and perhaps for the third game, you know, a character like Bane or something like that. In the same way that Mr. Freeze feels like he can't really carry his own game as a main villain, it very much is the reverse, where you can't relegate the Joker into a tiny box and place him in there because he's destined to just get out of that tiny box that you have set for him. So my final verdict is that I do want to see the Joker in this game, but I also recognize that he probably should not be solely the main villain. Now, do I believe that he can really take backseat to, again, somebody like Scarecrow or Bane? No, I do not, but I think that he can be a part of a huge laundry list of other villains and can necessarily perhaps share the spotlight with some of them if needed. I think it is needed. You know, I don't think that we want a story where it focuses purely around the Joker like an Arkham Asylum type of game. Rather, I'm suggesting something like Arkham City, where he is a prominent villain in the game, certainly, but, you know, maybe not necessarily the foremost villain, but certainly one of the most impactful to the story as he was in Arkham City. He just can't be in a side mission. That's all I'm saying. I can't play a Joker side mission. That would just be too weird for me. Unless, again, it was an Easter egg tease for the next game, similar to Hush in Arkham City. Unfortunately, that tease led to nothing in Arkham Knight. It led to a 10-minute side mission, but if that side mission in Arkham City had gone somewhere, that would have been something that would make sense. Which, by the way, the Joker in New 52 has a very similar strategy to Hush, where he is cutting people's faces off, sewing them together over his face. That is exactly what the Joker does in the New 52, which, by the way, was invented by Scott Snyder. You know who else invented the Court of Owls? Scott Snyder. In his 2011 New 52 run, he created the Court of Owls as the main villain, and we know that Scott Snyder was consulted for an 8-hour period by the developers of this game. That has been publicly admitted, so, you know, he has contributed to the game in some way. There were more suggestions than in a Paul Dini type of level. It's not as strong of an influence as a Paul Dini, basically doing all of the story in Asylum and City. It is more like a consulting role where Scott Snyder was consulted regarding constructing the Court of Owls. But nonetheless, giving that, and even given that, it is very possible that we could see the New 52 Joker in the game, who, again, is quite a bit different than the other Jokers that we saw from Batman Arkham games, which is inspired by the late 90s of Chuck Dixon in the comics, and also you know, obviously Batman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series was inspired by the 90s comics, late 80s, early 90s comics. So given all those factors, I think that this Joker will be pretty similar to what we've seen in the past, but probably a little bit more out there, a little bit more in line with that New 52 Scott Snyder run. As if he's in the game at all. Now, they might have really been receptive to that 45% of people, which is still a sizable chunk of people. It's a slight minority, but it's almost a majority of people that are saying, no, I don't want this. I do not want the Joker in this game. We've seen enough. And frankly, I totally get that perspective. I totally appreciate that and understand that POV. It's not one that I personally share, but it's something that I can't really complain about. I mean, it's really your choice. And once again, a very valid opinion. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe, turn on the bell, and become a member for $5 a month. You get a bonus video every single Sunday and great chat emojis to use in my live chat and comments here. My elite members, they pay $10 a month. Huge support to the channel. Thank you guys so much, and see you in the next video. Peace out.